I got interested in this project a number of years ago. It's when I first moved to religious education. I had been teaching classics, Greek and Roman history for 9 years at BYU before I moved over to ancient scriptures, started teaching New Testament. And so I was really excited to teach the Gospels. And in my first religion class teaching the Gospels, I got to that very familiar passage in Mark 2 where they lower the man with palsy through the roof. The friends want to get him to Jesus, but Jesus is so surrounded by people that they can't get through the press. And they lower him in. And I didn't know how to teach religion yet. I knew how to teach history, I knew how to teach languages, I could teach the text, but I thought, vaguely I remember my seminary teacher never taught something without bearing testimony afterwards. So I thought, okay, I will teach it, and then I will tell them it's true, and that it can happen to them too. And so I was trying to work them up into a frenzy, a good revivalist preacher, and I said, Jesus healed this man, and he can heal you too. And my students were all nodding their heads and smiling, except in the back of the room there was one young lady who looked so sad. What have I done wrong? And it haunted me all day. So that evening in my prayers, I asked the Lord, I said, what did I do wrong? I taught the text, I read the word of the Lord, I bore testimony. That's supposed to be the winning combination. That's the perfect formula. And the sense that came to me as I waited after my prayer was, that particular woman had been praying for a particular miracle for years, and it had not come. And then suddenly I realized that these stories about the miracles of Jesus that are the most encouraging and inspiring stories to many of us can be the cause of a lot of heartache for people who do not get miracles how and when they want them. The Lord sometimes has to hit me over the head 3 or 4 times till I get the message. So to help me learn that message, He gave me some really hard things in my life. My father was struggling with cancer at the time, and he asked me to give him a blessing. And in that blessing, I was inspired to release him, and he died 3 days later. And then about a year later, my only son was diagnosed with autism. And we prayed for a miracle, we prayed for help, and it didn't come the way we wanted it to. Now, we have had lots of miracles with Samuel since, and I'll share one of those at the end of the hour. But I thought, I've got to find another way to teach miracles besides just saying, this happened to these people so it can happen to you. There has to be something that works for everyone every time. And as I reflected on that more, I realized how many of these miracles, beyond being a particular blessing for an individual person, served as types of the atonement. How each miracle could represent different aspects of what Jesus has done for us. In this particular case, when Jesus said, take up your bed and walk, before he did that, he actually looked at his opponents. Some Pharisees were in the room. And he said, what is easier to say to the man with palsy? Take up thy bed and walk, or thy sins be forgiven thee. And of course, they were all offended. How can a man forgive sins? And so he said, take up your bed and walk, and your sins are forgiven. And I asked my students after that, I said, what's harder for Jesus? To heal someone of paralysis, or to forgive his sins? Now see, for us, forgiveness comes a little cheap. Someone offends us, all we have to say when they ask for our forgiveness is, that's all right, you're forgiven. But for Jesus to actually forgive sins, he had to suffer and die. It was actually harder to forgive his sins than it was, as the Son of God, to fix a broken body. So the most important part of healing that body was what that symbolized about healing the soul. And as we walk through a handful of these miracles today, I hope we'll be able to see how each one reflects a different aspect of the atonement. In fact, there's a second symbol in this particular miracle, and we'll see it in a couple other miracles. There's a man with a withered hand, there's a bent woman, etc. This idea of healing infirmities or giving someone strength to walk when he couldn't before is what Elder Bednar would call the strengthening and enabling power of the atonement. Right? The atonement's not just about forgiving sins. It is also about giving us strength to do things we couldn't do otherwise.